Hey, it's Travis. Too many camp directors run just on gut feel. Our free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic is your dashboard for resilience. Take it today at camp.mba/Travis. Again, that's camp.mba/Travis.
Join us today for our final episode of the first season of Beyond Camp, where we dive into how summer went, how we felt, and what it brought up for each of us. We're sharing with transparency, vulnerability, and honesty, diving in and unpacking our emotions, discovering how we can make time for ourselves and for others, and how we are really feeling. We're here to get into the tough stuff. We know that we can do hard things together, so come and join us today.
Welcome to Beyond Camp, a podcast for summer camp directors and leaders by Go Camp Pro. Beyond Camp explores the intersection of camp and the rest of our lives. Camp professionals know that all aspects of our lives affect our camp experience, and Beyond Camp is here to dive in the messy, brave, and joyous conversations that surround that fact. Check out our show notes at gocamp.pro/beyondcamp.
Beyond Camp is brought to you by the American Camp Association, Illinois. Sending thousands of children from economically disadvantaged households to camp and providing intentional services and programs to today's diverse camp professionals is at the core of the American Camp Association, Illinois' mission. Learn more about upcoming programs by visiting acail.org.
Welcome to Beyond Camp, where we explore the intersection of camp in our lives. For too long, we as camp professionals have referred to camp as being in a bubble or separate from the real world, and we're here to burst that bubble. We know that camp intersects with every aspect of our lives, and we're excited to delve into those. We're your hosts, Rachel Kent. My pronouns are she, her.
And I'm Cassie Bloy, and my pronouns are also she, her.
And we're here to go beyond camp with you today. As a friendly reminder, please subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today, and be sure to check out our show notes at gocamp.pro/beyondcamp. Now, let's get started. It's hard to believe it's already been a full season of Beyond Camp. We're wrapping up with our 10th episode this summer, and we're so grateful to all of you for listening. It's hard for us to believe, and we're honored and grateful that over 200 of you have listened each week. Cassie will have some fun stats for us at the end of the episode about where you've all been listening from, but thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going to wrap up and check in with each other and look towards the future. We started off this season by talking about how we're going to talk about hard things, and we're going to finish that way as well. We're not here to dance around the tough stuff. We're here to dive in and get vulnerable with each other. So join us. We're so excited that you're here. We recognize that just because the summer's over, it doesn't mean that this suddenly gets easier. We talked a lot about at the beginning of the summer our sense of our loss of identity and how we'd grown to accept things. We talked during the summer about some fabulous programs that folks were running, whether it be family camps, whether it be traditional in-person overnight programming or switching to virtual camps. And there was lots of successes and lots of excitement around that. But we also realized that the end of the summer can be really tough. And so we're going to do a little bit of a look backwards to get started. So Cassie, what are some of your reflections on the season so far?
I don't know. It's weird. I'm not really sure summer actually happened. I know that it got warm and there was sunshine, but I think I'm like in this lost place because I'm living in a new community. I started a new job in the middle of summer, and it's just kind of like everything's twisted and backwards.
Yeah, I agree with that. It almost feels like summer hasn't happened. It's such a strange feeling because like the normal milestones like we've talked about haven't occurred, but yet it's starting to get colder here. I was on a canoe trip last week in Algonquin Park here in Ontario, and it was fall weather. Like we were wearing our long underwear and we're like, yep, like fall is coming. We're used to this now. But there aren't those like normal markers for us to realize that the summer is over. I think what's been really neat for me looking back on this past season, both with Beyond Camp and just the summer season, it's been really empowering for me to realize that folks are feeling the same way, that it's not just you and I going through this, that the greater community is walking through this together and carrying this grief together. And that's been super powerful for me, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I've had a lot of conversations with people that I knew previous to COVID happening and people that I met through COVID being a thing and summer being really weird and wonderful and different in many, many ways. But it really kind of, I think, gave us space to meet more people and to learn new things at the same time.
Yeah, and to meet people in such a different venue as well. Like, we're so used to
Yeah.
meeting people in person in the summer, like we talked about. For both of us being introverts, that's like such a social time for us. But like, you and I have barely ever met in person, and now we have this like great friendship, and like I've connected with all these people all over North America through Summer Camp Pros and Camp Mavericks and the Slack group.
Yeah.
Which has been really neat. So there have certainly been like a lot of wonderful things come out of that. And we'll touch on some of that. And I think we're also really going to dive into the tough things, because it's easy to look back and be like, well, there were like some great things this summer, so we should just focus on those. But we need to spend some time sitting in the tough stuff, as we like to do here.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's interesting for me and what I'm finding challenging now is that there's all these like end of summer traditions that I would normally have that I'm missing out on. And I'm finding that to be really challenging.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier today when we were chatting, and it kind of brought back to me of like, I was sitting there, I was like, well, I've been so busy, but I've been learning a new job. And then I had a minute to sit and think, and it was like, well, I didn't get to run my typical end of summer session that I run that balances that first session I run when staff arrive as like a whole. It works kind of as a unit, and they run together in the same spot with the same message and a very similar activity. And I was like, I didn't get that. It didn't happen. And it's not going to happen.
Yeah, when I think about the end of the summer, I think about we have this like final staff dock run when we do our final campfire, and then all the staff run off the dock in their staff clothing, and we all get soaking wet, and then we're like cold and miserable for slideshow afterwards. But it's just this like really endearing moment that we all look forward to. I'm like, man, like that's not going to happen. We're not going to do staff awards, and staff awards are these incredible things where we each draw a name, and then people like make these really personal awards for each other. And it's the end of the summer, so you're tired, but you're like willing to stay up that extra hour or two just to like make something really neat for somebody. And I was like, man, I miss all of that after like the chaos and the stress of the summer, these like beautiful touch points that just like wrap up the summer. And I find that really hard. And then I think for me as well, I often at the end of the summer I'll wander or drive around camp to like check in on the different sites and make sure everything's cleaned up. But I always do that alone, or I take my dog. And it's this like wonderful reflection point for me of like, wow, all of these really beautiful things happen at each site. Sometimes it's chaos. Like sometimes I get to a site, like a set of tents or a cabin, and I'm like, oh boy, like I remember like this was like the vomit episode of this season. Like that happened here. But it's all these beautiful moments. I'm like, wow, I got to be a part of this growth of these staff and of these campers. And I always finish up that drive, often with tears in my eyes of like, wow, how lucky was I to have this opportunity to be part of this magic that we've created here in this community. Mm-hmm. And I'm missing that because I didn't realize when I did that last year that I wouldn't be doing it again this year. And that's hitting me really hard.
Yeah. And that's totally like, that's so fair. And it also, like you mentioned tears, and it brings me back to like a conversation I had at the end of last summer. And, the way our staff depart, based on flights and bus schedules and personal vehicles, it's never all at once. So it's like one person at a time every like 3 hours. And then there's just this new set of tears and hugs and another goodbye. And they all stood there and looked at me, and one of them went, why aren't you crying? And I was like, I'm not overly attached to the departure part of camp anymore, of you guys having to leave. After, 10 seasons of saying goodbye, I know I had found a way, I guess, to like detach myself from forming certain relationships or separating that, understanding that, these people might not be back, and I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a roller coaster, like I said before. Yeah. And I think I thought a couple of weeks ago that roller coaster had come to the station, and I was off of it now. I had moved on to things that I like more about amusement parks, like snacks and like hanging out with people versus more rides. But it seems that I found my way onto another roller coaster, which I was not expecting. And I'm finding the end of the summer to just be full of like all these unexpected emotions, and I'm finding it really challenging. And again, coming back to, I'm finding it challenging to share it with people who don't get camp.
Of course, always.
because people are like, well, this is like fantastic. Like you have the podcast, like you have a new job, you completed your course. And I'm like, yeah, those are all fantastic things. I went on a canoe trip. Like I have a list of wonderful things that have happened this summer and I'm grateful for each one of them. But I'm also still, I'm grieving. And I thought I had moved past it. And I come back to Ruby saying like, grief isn't linear, Rachel. And I'm like, yes, Ruby, you're right. I'm saying it here. You're right, Ruby. Grief is not linear. And I'm experiencing that now. And we're just all over the place, I find. How are you finding the end of the summer this year, aside from the fact that it doesn't feel that way?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it keeps coming back. I'm like, is summer over? Did summer happen? How do I feel about end of summer? Because with my new position, it's not really over and there's no clear cut, like something has ended because something just started. And I'm really finding it hard to take that moment and find that space and time to let myself feel, because I'm like being pushed from other ends to do other things and to do new things and to work. And usually at the end of the summer, I'm like taking a week off to recharge and reset myself. And I'm not going to get that in the next 2 weeks. For sure. And I'm just not I'm not even sure I've allowed myself to understand that that's going to not going to happen.
I think that's a really valid point. I think a lot of us are doing that right now, where we aren't holding space for these emotions right now. Yeah. We're working through it versus like we're just pushing through it versus working through it. And I think that's an important distinction. It's one thing to like work through our emotions and to sit with them and to hold space for ourselves and to grieve still the loss of the summer and perhaps what's to come. But I think a lot of us are just pushing through it. We're like, okay, like summer 2021, what are we going to do? Like, what does the fall look like? Are we in new positions? And we're pushing and pushing and pushing. And then we find ourselves in these moments of peace or of quietness, and we're like, oh my goodness, all of these hard feelings are here. I was on a canoe trip recently and I was excited for it. I love canoe tripping. For me, it was like going back to my roots. It's like what made me want to get into summer camp. And all of a sudden I was on this canoe trip and I was just like overwhelmed with emotion. Because I felt like I finally had time to like think about these things, and it just all hit me again. And it really made me think that we as a community need to take time to hold space for ourselves, and to be gentle with ourselves, and to realize that we might have felt okay a couple of weeks ago. We might have worked through it, but just because the summer's over, it doesn't mean that we also have to be okay. This doesn't all go away.
Yeah. So that it just has me thinking of like, what can I do in the next like week where I can, make time. And I use make time versus find time on purpose, because if you just try to find it, it's never going to come up. You have to be very intentional about making that time happen to, remove myself from technology and devices and work and technology through access to work as well, to, be able to sit with that and to spend some time working through those feelings and those thoughts and, letting it be and being with it.
Yeah. And I think I want to say to the entire camp community, to all of our listeners, it's okay for us to not be okay right now. It's okay for the end of the summer to be just as hard as the start. And I think we expected the start to be hard. And we're like, okay, like this is going to be a challenge. And we haven't expected that of the end. And we need to allow ourselves to feel that. For me, one of the things I often do at the end of the summer is I go on a road trip, usually for 2 weeks out east, and I take my dog and I go camping. And so I'm going this year, following all the COVID safety protocols that are in place. But I'm working while I'm there. So I'm not camping, but I'm going to be going out there. And so I'm really excited for that because it's an important part of my year to me. But I also know that it's going to be very different because I usually use that time to journal and to reflect and to spend time outside and with my dog. And it's going to be very different. And I'm embracing myself for what it's going to be like to work through that. And I think that's part of our new reality, is that we have to look at things through a slightly different lens, and we have to adjust our lens. So it doesn't mean that we have to stop doing the things that we love, but we have to expect different of them.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, how's that going to look like for you? What are you thinking that might look like, trying to balance, your previous experiences doing that trip versus what that's going to look like this year? How are you preparing for that?
I'm talking about my feelings on a podcast is how I'm down with it, Cassie. Thank you for asking. I think it's something that I'm still wrestling with. I'm expecting that I will enjoy it, but also spend some time being upset about it. And I think now I'm feeling less of a personal loss and more of a loss for my community, in that I'm like, wow, like I'm sad for the staff who didn't get this like final year, their final year on staff, or who didn't get their promotion. I'm sad for the campers who are going to be in our final year of our leadership program. I'm carrying a lot of the grief of the potential that was there and is gone now. And it's not to say that we can't get it back, but I'm not there. I've moved on from grieving just for myself and grieving for the bigger picture, I think, which is being a challenge, but also I think important and a really beautiful time, and trying to see it through that lens as well. Do you think your emotions have like changed a whole bunch over the course of the summer? You've had a different experience with the summer than I have.
Yeah, I was thinking about this and I'm trying to be like, I feel like they have changed, but then at the same time, this last month of a new job has just like thrown me for a loop. And like, I was like sitting with everything, kind of coming to terms with it at that point. And then I got this opportunity, and like, I'm super grateful that I have the option to work and was able to find work during this time. But then, you know, my emotions shifted to like, my stress levels jumped up, and trying to learn all of these new things and systems and processes and a new culture and kind of fix culture and all these little things that I haven't had a chance to really feel much other than the weight of figuring it out. And as I've now kind of into that week of like feeling now like I'm okay, I've got it all sorted out, that I have a couple days off coming up and I'm not sure what's going to happen.
That's fair. Do you want to unpack that a little bit when you say you're not sure what's going to happen?
Well, I'm hoping to go sit on my paddleboard in a lake and see what happens.
All right, fair. We'll check back in with you next season to see what happened.
We're not sure what's going to happen. I'm hoping to make that space for myself, and but I'm not sure if my body and my brain is going to let me have that space to process, because I find I have to be in the right mindset. Otherwise, my brain is constantly moving on what can I do next to improve things in this world or that world.
And I think camp pros, we're used to problem solving, right? Like we're used to putting out small fires. We're used to rushing around and like, what's next? And so I think a lot of us have been really taxed, like emotionally and creatively through this whole process. Because as soon as COVID hit, like as soon as there were even rumors about it, camp pros were like, what can we be doing? How can we be supporting each other, our communities? And so many incredible things have come out of that. And then there was excitement for the summer and virtual programming and like, how can we connect with people who we normally don't get to see in the summer? And like, I had excitement about canoe tripping and like spending time outside in ways that I don't normally get to. But I also think that like, this isn't ending now. The end of the summer is here. The pandemic isn't ending, and we need to be patient with ourselves and be kind to ourselves so that we can continue to have that excitement. I know there's some camp pros out there who are like, how can we support learning pods? How can we support schools? Which is fabulous and incredible. We just need to remember that at some point, we have to sort of like step off the racetrack and take a few breaths before we can hop back on and keep going.
Yeah. And I think that's so important to say that like, you need to make that time for yourself so you can continue to serve and be that, identify as that person who wants to be involved and problem solve and find a way to help support your community in whatever way that might be for you. But you can't do that if you don't have a full cup.
For sure. And I feel like we're saying this as much as a reminder to each other as we are to all of our listeners as well. So let's all do this together, friends, and let's all make sure that we're taking care of ourselves so we can take care of each other. So I said we were going to talk about the tough stuff, and we're going to get vulnerable. So I thought we could just dive into like, where are we now? Like, let's lay it out, and I'm happy to start here. I think for me, I'm struggling. I have good days, like days that I'm super stoked about everything that's going on. Not everything that's going on, but like exciting things in my life. And I'm like, yeah, I can see all the positive. This is fabulous. And I'm having some tough days. I'm still really wrestling with the fact that I'm not a camp director right now, that when people ask what I do, I can't just say I'm a camp director. In some ways it's easier because I'm like, oh, I work in risk management. People are like, oh yes, I know what that means. So I suppose that part is easier, but I'm struggling. I had a moment, my mother was asking me something about camp. And I was like, well, Mom, like, I'm not a camp director anymore. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, Mom, like, my position was eliminated. Like, I'm not a camp director. And she was like, looked upset. And she goes, well, let's not think like that, Rachel. Like, let's not talk about that. We'll see what happens. And moved on. And it was this interesting moment where I was like, I've started to come to terms with accepting this, but I don't know if I ever fully communicated it to other people in my life. So now I feel like I have to walk them through this a little bit as well, whether it be my friends or other people in the camping community. And that was really, really tough for me. And I've seen some things on social media from folks that people are struggling through this time. And I just want to say, like, you're not the only one, or maybe I'm the only one, but I doubt that. This is a tough time, and that's okay.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, it's not hard. And I don't know if I've even given myself the space to be like, yeah, you're not a camp director anymore. Yet earlier today, I was typing up a session to teach and help my staff be better customer service. And I had this camp game and that camp game. And I was like bringing camp with me into what I have now, which is, I think, something that we can all do as well. Like, just because we are no longer camp directors doesn't mean that camp is no longer in our life.
For sure. And I want to look at how we can continue that, because I think for a lot of people at this time, especially like young or emerging camp professionals, may be seeing themselves with periods without a direct connection to camp right now. Yeah. Just given like where they maybe fall like in the management scheme. And we know for you and I working in Canadian camping, it's a tough time, likely as in other places in the world as well. And looking at how we're going to like maintain those connections. And some days I feel really positively about that. And other days it's still really tough. But I love what you said about bringing camp into our day-to-day lives and like bringing it into our new jobs. So let's take a quick break and we'll dive into that in the second half.
ACA Illinois takes the time to keep a pulse on what is happening in the camp community. They care about us as camp pros and seek to serve and provide programming that meets our needs.
Staying connected and in touch with the field helps drive ACA Illinois' creativity and work when it comes to designing professional development programs. Cassie and I have both benefited greatly from ACA Illinois' educational programs and recommend them highly to everyone else.
As we head into the fall and as the pandemic draws out, don't let Zoom fatigue keep you from staying connected. The ACA Illinois calendar is full of great events to keep you busy and connected for the whole fall season. Don't let your professional development fade this fall. How fantastic is it that you can attend professional development without the cost of a flight, or attend the Women in Camp Summit from the comfort of your couch in your favorite old camp sweatpants?
I know I'll be bookmarking the acail.org/calendar website and staying in the loop of all their great events this fall and winter. So Cassie, right before the break, you had talked about how you are bringing camp into your day-to-day job, your new job that you're in. What are some of the ways that you've done that? You mentioned like staff training. Are there other ways that you've sort of quote unquote campified your new job?
I'm going slow and easy. I don't want to break anyone per se. But yeah, we do monthly staff meetings. So I'm using that. The mentorship piece and coaching staff is really big for me. I was fortunate enough to participate in, coincidentally enough, Ruby's Best Boss Ever Masterclass earlier this year. And am finding that very transferable to a management role where I'm doing a lot of staff supervision, but also being able to, I'm trying to find best ways to break it down and simplify it for my supervisors so that they can be better supervisors. Because again, so just like in camp, those middle managers are often getting missed in learning how to be a supervisor for your peers and for your friends and all of that. So I'm finding like there's a lot of crossover, but the hardest part for me actually is like reestablishing a new routine. Quite honestly, like the hours are like, it's an 8-hour shift. I'm not really sure what that means. I have to take a lunch with me because it's easier than leaving the park to go make lunch, and I could walk, but I often drive to work just because I don't know how I'm going to feel at the end of the day to walk the 20 minutes home. And there's just like all of these new things coming together that I'm having to reestablish.
Yeah, and I think that the routine piece is really interesting because when we launched into the summer, a lot of us are used to starting the summer, and if we're overnight camp directors, even day camp pros, we're like moving to a new location. Our entire lives change for 2 or 3 months, and we're used to that. Yeah. And so I think for me, the beginning of the summer, I was like, okay, this is different, but I can still get excited about it because I'm used to things changing. I'm used to a different pace, whatever that might be. But then there's like a comfort in the fall of returning back to that old routine. And for a lot of us now, that old routine is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Or it's like wildly different. Like I'm not going back to an office. Now I'm working from home all the time. And so I'm trying to come up with that work-life balance here. And my manager, who's a former camp pro and still very involved in the camping community, they turned to me and they said, you don't have to work like 10-hour days. Like I know you're used to that because that's what like you do as a camp director in the summer, but you don't have to. Like you can sign off of your email when you're done your work for the day and like be done with work. You don't need to continue to think about it. And I was like, oh, all right. That's a good point.
Yeah. And like they say that, but it's so hard. Like I'm finding it really hard. Like I have to like shut down, quit all those programs because my personal computer is my work computer. And I can't just close it if I'm using it to stream something or like all those notifications keep popping up. So I've had to go to like file quit and just like stop them, but then they buzz on my phone. So it's like, how do we actually turn off at the end of a workday when we're not expected to work the hours of a standard camp director lifestyle?
Yeah, for me, I find like one of the things is taking lunch. When I worked in an office, I worked with other people, and so we would take lunch together. Now it's really easy to grab something and sit down at my desk. So I try and grab something to eat and then go for a walk. That's my thing, and I know I've talked about that before, and that's been really important in finding that routine and hoping to continue to find that. I think that those routines are going to be really important as we move forward into the fall, especially a fall that might look different depending on where we live and the state of the pandemic around us.
Yeah.
I think another thing that's really interesting is often the fall is our time to sort of decompress socially from camp. Like camp is so go. And then I find I need a few weeks after the summer, and then I start to connect with people in person again and all those people who aren't part of my camp world. But now I've been connected with a lot of those folks over the year. And at least for us here, we're still very much into like socializing outdoors. And so we're going to have to get creative when it gets cold. We imagine at least, or those are the conversations people are starting to have. And so I think we now have to look at like, how do we build these new forms of connection this fall? Like, is it going to be virtual, in person? Do we want to set up new routines so that we can connect with people? Because I think that was a big learning for a lot of folks during the pandemic, was that they needed routine connection with people.
Yeah, I think that's so important to note too, because it was something that, a lot of us experienced a loss of when, businesses went to work from home or school went to virtual formats, and those spaces for connection that we naturally had stopped existing. And with winter on its way and pandemic in different stages across the globe, what is that really going to look like? And how can we be intentional about connecting with each other and making sure it's not just about work, that it's also a social format as well, and being able to distinguish the two and respect that space and those boundaries for people.
And what a great time for us to bring camp beyond the property lines. When I think of this, I think there's so many ways that you can be intentional. I set up a group of some camp pros that I had met over the years, and all sort of like winter and spring, we had these like essentially like a summer camp support group for each other. And we paused it during the summer because our lives just got busy, but we have plans now for like, let's say every Monday we're going to meet, we're going to chat for an hour and a half. Doesn't have to be specifically be about camp, but just having that touch point that we come back to every single week where we're checking with each other is really important. Or something that I know the mod group of Slack did, which was the secret friends online, which was super cool. And I'm hoping to do with this group where you set up a Google form, have somebody outside of the group facilitate it, and then send each other little like care packages for 6 or 7 weeks. It's lots of fun. You need a little bit more time if you're going to cross borders. We learned that.
Yeah, but it's so much fun. And I have to say, it was really fun. My secret friend for that was actually Rachel. And I apologize, Rachel, your package is still sitting on my desk.
These things happen. But hey, I feel like mail is really exciting to get when you're at camp. So why not continue that the rest of the year?
Yeah, it's such a highlight sometimes. It just, can give you a little lift.
Mm-hmm. As we talk about the summer ending and fall starting, for a lot of us that signifies a change in weather as well. And I think spring was nice because it started to get warmer for a lot of us, and there was a sense of hope in that. And then camp was canceled, but we were able to, for a lot of us, and then we were able to sort of find hope and excitement in other places. And something that I am trying to come to terms with is, where do we find our hope now? It's the end of the summer. We got through it. I felt like we had like revved ourselves up and puffed off our chest. And we're like, okay, we're going to get through this summer. Like, we're going to do it. It's going to be hard, but we're through it.
Yeah.
And now we're through it, and things aren't back to normal. And nobody promised that they would be. But I think there was like an unspoken like whispering that like, just get through the summer and like, it'll be okay in the fall. It'll be okay. And it will be okay at some point. We're okay now. We're going to continue to be okay. But things aren't back to normal. And I'm going to be the person to say it. It's hitting me that summer 2021 is not going to be the same as summer 2019. That we've done all this work, we've worked really hard, and it's likely summer 2021 will not be, quote unquote, back to normal. And I think that's a hard thing for people to wrestle with. And I think there's a lot of fatigue there around where do we find our hope?
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. Like, I'm with you on it. It's not going to be the same. It's going to take us some time to get to where that might be. And it's going to be different, I think, as well across the globe. It's going to look different everywhere on how we get there and what that looks like. And I'm not sure where we find hope. Do we need to maybe look more at our connections? Is it maybe less about what it looks like and more about what we do and how we do it? And looking more at the relationships we build and the skills that we teach kids in camp to get us to that point, and finding new, unique, creative ways to do that.
I think hope is also an intensely personal thing. For some people, there might be a religious or spiritual faith. For other people, it might be in family or in new chapters in their lives. And I think for me, and if I were to give somebody a piece of advice on this, would be to look in the little things. Where can we find hope in the little things? Is it something you're excited for in a couple of weeks or next month? Is it a new skill that you want to learn that you maybe wouldn't have learned before because you were so busy rushing around doing things? Like maybe you want to take up woodworking or knitting or something. Maybe that's where we find some hope, and we look for the small things versus the giant big things, like getting back to quote unquote normal. I think might be helpful for folks. And then I think
that.
Oh, thanks.
It makes me think of just like realigning our goals to something that's more tangible and in the moment and smart.
Well, I think for a lot of us, we've dealt with a lot of disappointment. And I think a lot of us are scared to hope and to dream because there's been so much disappointment. I feel that way. I'm supposed to leave for the East Coast in a few days, and I'm still like super stoked and also like terrified that it's not going to happen. There's no good reason for it to not happen, but I've dealt with so much disappointment that I just don't want to get my hopes up. And I think a lot of people are feeling that, and we need to find ways to come to terms with that. And so I think starting small allows us to almost begin to trust ourselves and trust the world again, that we can be hopeful and we can look forward to things. I think those are really small, important steps, and that we just be really gentle with ourselves. Managing these feelings is really tough, and we do have to move forward because the world is moving forward regardless of whether or not we want it to. And so being really small and thoughtful with ourselves I think will help us get there.
Yeah, I think that's so important to note, like, and just to like bring to the forefront that it's okay to do it how it works for you, and, you know, take the bite that fits for you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Start small. It doesn't have to be anything big. Just take it day by day, hour by hour, whatever that looks like for you. And it's going, the days are going to continue to happen, and you're going to continue moving forward.
And it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. And it's okay that it's hard. It's okay to not feel okay with what we're coping with. But that we're managing ourselves. And then also, I know we've talked about this before, but now might be the time to reach out for some professional help. If you feel like you're struggling to find somebody who you can talk to, who can be, who can like just have a bird's eye view of things, who can be impartial and listen to you. There's nothing wrong with that, of going and seeing even your family doctor and talking about things. So please take care of yourselves as we manage our feelings moving forward. Cassie and I are not professionals, and we encourage you to reach out to professionals if you feel like that's something that you need.
Yes, please do.
So we've talked about a lot of the hard things. This summer was unexpected in just about every way.
Mm-hmm.
Cassie, what do you feel like you've gained from this summer without camp?
I really think it's the connections and support of the camp community, and realizing how much we're able to provide for each other and support each other and provide guidance for each other and hold space for each other. New connections, old connections, they're just there. And, you know, I typically go through the summer without really connecting with other camp pros, unless it's, you know, a quick call to a mentor for a quick question, because I just want to be sure that I was on the right track. But, you know, once camp was operating, it was kind of like, yeah, I got this, we're good, keep going. I can connect with people after that. But the importance of connection and how much that really plays a role in our lives really stands out as something important and unexpected for me, because I've never made it the forefront of my summer.
That's fair. I think ultimately the most unexpected thing for me was this podcast. I said before that I've always wanted to have a podcast. It's really neat to have one. So that was unexpected. We're grateful to Travis and Go Camp Pro for allowing us this opportunity. So that's probably the biggest thing to come from this. And then I think also for me, the little things, like I've done a lot of biking, and I never bike in the summer. I always have these dreams of like taking my bike up to camp, and I have so much other stuff with me that my bike never makes it up there. So it's been fun to do some biking and spend some time with my partner in not stressful situations. My partner has worked with me at camp for many years. So we've done the like 3 a.m. cleaning up the vomit thing together, or like sitting outside of tents, staring at the stars at 2:30 in the morning, waiting for a camper to go to sleep. We've bonded in that way. It's been nice to bond in the way that the rest of the world does, over like dinner or like a walk in the park. A little bit less stressful, a little bit more on the bonding side. So that's been nice. And then I know I've talked to some other camp directors who've taken summer canoe trips or hiking trips, camping trips of any type. You never get to do that in the summer. Nobody's ever like, oh yes, you should go and take like a week or 10 days and spend some time in the forest, not connected to anybody. Or at least that's never happened for me in the summer. So that's been very special this year. Yeah,
I actually read a handful of books this summer.
Yes.
I know I'm not going to say I've read any in August, but prior to that, I definitely got some. I have like 3 on the go though right now that I'm super excited to get through. But like, I always chose not to read in the summer because I could never keep my attention on it long enough to read more than a page without the book smacking me in the face. So.
Fair enough. I actually... for me in the summer, I'm going to go off on a tangent here for a second. When I'm at camp, I typically read, because I read a chapter of a book every single night before I go to sleep, because it helps calm my mind. Otherwise, I can't sleep at camp. But then for some reason, during the rest of the year, I don't do that. I would rather be on Instagram, which definitely doesn't help my sleep. So I should try and roll that habit forward. But yeah, so I think it's good to sit and reflect with the things that have been really hard this summer, and also the things that we've gained and the unexpected friendships and relationships. I mean, I've gotten to spend time with people that I never would in the summer, like you said, which has been a beautiful thing. But I don't think that we should allow that to erase the hard feelings that we're having. We've talked about toxic positivity and just remembering that it's okay to not be okay and to feel those feelings and to set boundaries to allow yourself that space.
Yeah.
So we are wrapping up our first season, which is remarkable.
Astounding.
We're going to launch into season 2. We're so grateful for all of you listeners. We've got lots of exciting things planned. We'll be back every 2 weeks instead of every week with lots of great content.
And so it's so exciting to be doing this and to be sharing these thoughts and feelings and emotions. And I'm excited. I can't wait to dive in and to talk more about, the identity of a camp director and what it means to be a camp director and the different relationships that we have with ourselves and others at camp, as well as outside of camp, and what that all means. But we also want to hear from you, our listeners. What should we talk about? What have we missed? Do you know somebody who we should talk to?
Should we talk to you? Let us know. We want to support you as a camp pro, and we want to support you in your entirety. We recognize that you're not just a camp professional, that your life exists beyond the 2 or 3 months that you spend at camp. We know that you're so much more than that. We know that there's some things that are really easy to talk about and how our lives intersect with camp. We also know there's parts of our identities that are really hard to talk about sometimes, or that we have shied away from because we were scared to talk about them, or folks didn't create space for us to talk about them. And we want to burst those bubbles and allow space to talk about those things. Cassie and I don't claim to be experts on any of these topics, but we do want to use this platform, use our voices and our privilege in the space to allow others to share their stories so that we can look at what it means to be a camp pro and how we can continue to broaden that definition.
Excellent. So if you have thoughts, feelings, emotions, want to join us on the podcast, you can email us beyondcamp@gocamp.pro. And as a final thought today, we're going to do one last recharge station for you in season 1. And self-care is so important to our personal wellness in the easier times and the not so easy times. And it's often something we as camp professionals have a hard time with, that we don't always do very well or very intentionally. We want to know how you charge your batteries and what makes you feel inspired. Rachel, ideas this week?
For me, and I've been having some good success with this actually, is not hopping on social media when I first wake up. Sometimes it's a challenge and I find myself scrolling through the weather in great detail more than I should, but not being on social media, getting out of bed, starting my day with a dog walk, and then hopping on social media afterwards just gives me a bit more perspective on the day.
Nice. I should try that. Definitely guilty of grabbing my phone to turn off the alarm and then opening it up to see what happened in the last 10 hours. But for me, try a new recipe. I'm going to try to take this one to heart this week as well and try a few new recipes this week so that I'm not eating the same thing all week. And pick a country, Google something that you always wanted to try, or maybe it's that family recipe that you want to get your hands on. Send that message, get that recipe, try it out for yourself.
Nice.
We want to thank you for joining us beyond camp. We hope that season 1 brought you a chance to connect and reflect as we journey beyond the property lines and bring camp with us wherever we go. As we wrap up one last time, we want you to be able to reach out and connect with us. You can reach myself, Cassie, at cassie.bloy@stephanericard.ca. Rachel?
Folks are always welcome to send me an email at kentar@girlguides.ca.
Remember, you can find all of our show notes at gocamp.pro/beyondcamp. All 10 episodes are there. We want to give a last big thank you to Go Camp Pro for holding space and space on the Camp Hacker feed for these conversations for season 1. And to the team at ACA Illinois for making this happen. To Matt for sitting with us every week and dealing with our technology glitches. And to you, our listeners, for sitting with us and listening in. With that, a big shout out goes to our top cities for listening in: Toronto, LA, Hamilton, Ontario, Brevard, North Carolina, and lastly in the top 5 is Brampton, Ontario. A huge shout out again to some of those Canadian cities for listening in. We're so stoked to have you on board. Remember that Beyond Camp is part of the Go Camp Pro podcast network. Be sure to check out all other podcasts at gocamp.pro/podcasts. Stay tuned to the Go Camp Pro newsletter to find out when and where you can find us on our own feed for season 2. We're going to continue to dive deep into the identity of the camp director and how it intersects with our daily lives. Just search for Beyond Camp. And for one last time, folks, go well and safely. We can't wait to bring season 2 to you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode. Beyond Camp is a part of Go Camp Pro and the Go Camp Pro podcast network. Find a podcast for camp professionals of every age and stage at gocamp.pro/podcast. Thanks for listening, friends.
Hey Camp Pros, we love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, if you've gotten even one good idea from a Go Camp Pro podcast, masterclass, from the Summer Camp Professionals group, a conference, or wherever else, we ask that you give credit where credit is due. That way, it'll encourage camp pros to keep freely sharing their ideas and make the camp industry as a whole better.
Hey, it's Travis. Camp directors often tell me they're just too tired to take on anything new. That's exactly why my free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic exists. It doesn't add work, it shows you progress. Quick, free, repeatable, you'll know if your systems are paying off without the guesswork. Try it today at camp.mba/Travis. That's camp.mba/Travis.